All right, all right, all right. The mic is on. Everything should be working.
Hey,
Welcome,
perfect.
everyone, to episode 112. Um, so, for those who don't know, I recently um, was bringing out a bit of a new doctrine for Inner just to have some fun with. I pivot around for a long time. And there was suddenly, on the same day, actually, okay, I gotta be quite honest here. We had the same day picked. Spectre fleet ran out the same or like the same ship type, different fit kind of doctrine, and I moved my fleet a day before just so I can be first, right?
I was wondering
And
about the timing
uh,
because I'm like, okay, I'm doing a Skybreaker fleet. How is Pando suddenly like messaging me about a Skybreaker fleet?
I just thought so. All right, I had two fits the entire time, and I like a couple of guys that I always bounce stuff off, like Bjorn or Shines or whoever. Like they know I went back and forth 100 times. 10 MN is a risk, a 10 MN frigate doctrine, but I had to try it out. So I went with 10 MN a day before, knowing you would do the 5 MN a day after. So I was like, this way we might just get both information, like,
Yeah,
both
we can
doctrines
compare
tested.
notes after the fact.
Exactly. So I was like, man, and then I was like, I should talk to that guy actually, right? So yeah, I come with you, and that's how we got here, right? So that was the background. Um, but yeah, to give everyone a bit of an idea of who you are, a long time Spectre FC. Spectre fleet is a NPSI fleet or NPSI organization. For those who don't know, I think most people or everyone who is kind of in the NPSI scene, right, uh, knows you very well. I think has been a name that came up over the years, like so many times, but we never had the chance to actually sit down and like we never talked to each other really. And I think it probably has to do with it might be time zone. It might be just the fact you're more of a low seeker, and we'll come to
Hmm.
that point in a second. And I'm more of a null seeker. And yeah, I mean, I all right to explain one thing to you guys too. Um, I messed up the player cards. Right, I make mistakes. I made several mistakes this time. One of them was I so for those who don't know, I send it out to people so like a list, and they give themselves the points. It's more of like it's not a rating how good people are. It's like how active, like how much time have you spent on stuff, right? And then they sent me the thingy back, and then I was just busy doing something else on the side, and I took my own stats. Okay, so I took my own stats, sent him the card back, and he's like, "That's kind of weird. It's like those are your stats, dude. Like I'm not a
Yep.
like," and he got offended by it, right? He
The
got offended by
atrocity of
my
making people think that I would be a no block FC. Hey,
no, unbelievable, man, unbelievable. But yeah, I think maybe the reason why we didn't have too much like overlap when it comes to fleets. I'm not sure if we ever fought fleet versus fleet.
I don't think we have. No, it's
Yeah,
just slightly different circles. I mean, I do some null stuff as well, but
yeah,
usually not so much like init space or anything like that. So.
yeah. I mean, the last 2 years I haven't FC'd all that much. I gotta be honest, right? So that might also be a good reason why. But yeah, why did you get so offended, my dude? Why did you get so offended?
Nah, no, no. I saw the stat cards and I'm like, that looks like you just copied your own. Am I tripping here or am I missing something? But nah. No,
No.
it's always a little bit of a running joke when you're dealing with like low sec pirates or anybody from anybody else's space, right? It's always the enemy's barbarian horde versus our peace loving civilians and that kind of thing. Where's that the whole meme of like the two copied sides? But
I mean, at the end of the day, what is the big difference anyway between a nullsec and a lowsec FC, right?
it's different types of content, but at the end of the day, you're doing the same thing. It's just slightly different setup, slightly different organization and objectives, but the real job behind it is still the same.
So, like, do you spend most of your time FCing for Spectre Fleet, or do
Yeah.
you spend most of the time FCing for Deep Water also, or for
No,
whatever lines you're in?
I don't FC for Big Up. I haven't been with them for too long yet, and I'm like still kind of trying to see like, okay, what kind of content are people interested in? Maybe I'll start running some of those fleets, but with Spectre Fleet, I can just kind of do what I like. So it's very easy for me to just be like, all right, cool. I feel like doing a fleet. There we go.
I think also probably a healthy FC mindset is always like, at least that happens to me all the time. Is like, do they actually need me to run fleets? Like, do they have plenty? Like,
Yeah, that's also the thing. Like right now, Big App isn't exactly short on content, so
yeah,
you can always do more. But if I'm not quite sure what kind of fleets they want to do yet, then I'd rather just to hop into something where I don't have to worry too much about it.
yeah. And then so half and half. Do you go like half into null, half into low with your fleets, or is it like really?
It depends really. It honestly depends on like the time of year almost. Because with some events in nullsec, there's a bunch of people out in space, and then you get the lowsec events. There's way too much or way more to do there. Um, Before the whole war with Brave, for example, we used to go to their staging just to get like arranged fights or just show up with a battlecruiser fleet, and it really depends on like who's good for content and what's happening in space.
Yeah, I mean, Brave, like yesterday on
Yeah.
Fleet, actually, someone brought it up. They staged in GE-8 for a long time, right? And Catch.
Mm.
It's still one of my most active systems in Eve, even though they haven't staged there in like, I don't know how long.
They always famously took forever to form up. Like you'd have an arranged fight with them, show up in their staging, and you could expect their fleet to show up half an hour late. But they were fun fights.
Never done the arranged fight stuff. I gotta be honest. I always thought that was a little weird to like it takes kind of that sandboxy feel out of it for me. You know what I mean?
It yeah, I can understand why. For us, it's more like Spectre Fleet is just doing fleets because we feel like going out and blowing up some spaceships. So if there's not really like any objective or like war between alliances or something like that, then yeah, okay, ranged is a little less dynamic, but then you do get a fight where the sides are a little bit more even and you can really challenge yourself. Which
Well,
can be hard to get sometimes. Fair fights is always that never-ending topic, but
don't
sometimes
get
you
me
just want to
started.
save the pain and just arrange a quick fight and have some fun.
Yeah, I mean that's. I don't want to go on a rant in the first 5 minutes of the podcast, but that's what I keep saying. It's like FCs like us, like we need some options too, right? Like to go
No,
places. And if there's only one option, or maybe two in my case, I can go to Fortage H and I can go to MJ Dash to get like a proper fight for like a bigger fleet, right? Um, you know, it's just and they know that too. You know, they don't have to
no,
give you good fights. They know, like you're here. Like, what are you gonna do? Fly back home?
yeah,
Like,
no, and that's the thing. Sometimes, like if you're, especially when the objective for us is just take out a fleet, go get blown up, have some fun with it, and try to take out whatever you can. It, if you can save like waiting for enemies to form up and having to go a bunch of jumps because nobody's forming up, and you can save that time and just have an arranged fight with like within half an hour. Yeah, for the simple effectiveness of just undocking and immediately getting a decent fight. Yeah, sometimes that's just a nice way to get it.
yeah, I mean, it also comes down to size of the fleet, right?
Mm.
So obviously, for like the smaller, you should like. Now that I'm thinking about this, maybe it's not necessarily the smaller the fleet, the easier it is to find a fight. Um, because I think in the Age of Marauders, it's like you need a certain
Mm.
size to find something fightable.
Yeah, you have to be creative about where you're going. Like you just need to know the area because Lowsec, for example, you can get a lot of fights with just like a couple of cruisers, but you got to know which area of space to show up to and what groups are gonna run away from you, etc.
Who gives you the best fights? Give
Who
me some
gives us the
props.
best fights? Oh,
Who are the best? Why is it in it?
uh, I don't fight in it very often, so I genuinely
Shit.
can't say it is.
You can just lie too. It's okay.
Um, Yeah, I mean, Brave used to be somebody who we would get a lot of arranged fights with. Sedition also has some really fun guys. We did a fight with them for Young Puke's birthday, where they brought a bunch of Armageddon navies and we brought a bunch of torpedo typhoons and just mashed in on top of each other at zero. Good fun.
Nice.
Um,
Snuffed, probably. Best fights.
Snuff is interesting fights.
Quick
Nishua
fights.
Cattell
That's what they do.
also. If you bring up the Nishua Wars in Spectre Fleet, you're gonna get a whole bunch of fond memories out of a lot of people as well, because they came to fight us in Abazon for like a protracted sort of like, we call it a war, but it was just content really. So those are some of the best is hard to say because every group gives different types of content.
I
But
know.
yeah, Brave, Sedition, and Nishua are definitely like the three names that come up to mind the most. Oh, and I should give a special mention to the guys from Astral Acquisitions. They're like an indie corp that just save up money, and every now and then they do a charity stream and buy a bunch of battleships and some capitals, and they just fucking YOLO it. It's great. They give us
Nice.
awesome fights, even if they know they're probably gonna feed all of it, and they still come and give us awesome fights.
Yeah.
And they raise money for charity, so huge props to them.
Yeah, there's always a handful of guys that just like do these events and just like, put it on a line instead
Yep.
of just saving up. I've never understood the saving up your assets kind of thing anyway. Like, what are you
If
looking
you're
for?
not undocking for it, yeah, I mean, big number Ghostbert is always fun, but if you're not undocking it, what's the point?
Yeah, I never understood it. But especially in Nullsec, I think you get to that, like I think it comes from the empire building mindset, maybe, right?
Mm.
And then people kind of want to build their little empire in their little hangar, right?
For sure.
And they're very concerned when the hangar shrinks over time. It always has to
Oh yeah.
grow. It can't go ever down, right?
Yep. No,
So
it's I can imagine it. It's just always been hard for me to put myself in that mindset because yeah, the only thing I've done for the last like half decade is take out fleets for the sake of just having fun with those fleets. So the idea of like not taking out your big toys is almost alien to me.
yeah. So you are also a team captain for tournaments, and actually we wanted to do the podcast before. That was a little complication before the
There just happens
Anger
to
Games.
be a small little tournament thing going on right now, you know.
But yeah, there's like Anger Games is going on right now, and you guys got kicked out last weekend.
Yep.
So who kicked you out? And are they still in? Are you now
we
rooting for those guys?
we lost to, oh man, I get mixed up with the team names all the time because some of the long-standing teams always go with like a different name over the course of time.
That's the hardest part for me. I gotta be honest. In Anger Games, like I know some names. For example, the team earlier, I forgot what the name even was, but like I see Faffy, Waffy, and Pandy. I know it's the Dark Side team. So
we lost against Barcode and Exodus, so both really strong teams. I don't feel too bad about that one.
If I've heard of them in an Alliance tournament context, I know they're strong.
Yeah. No, Exodus are a very long-standing team. So is Barcode. Like those are guys that they have far more years in tournaments than I do. So,
well, I have 0 years. I've never tried it. Maybe one day I will, but we talked about it briefly when like during the countdown actually. I think that just the workload is just to get far, right? It's not the workload to just join and have some fun. Not that big.
yeah,
big of a
it's
deal.
it really can be. We were talking to some of the other teams and some of the like more experienced teams, and comparing notes on how many scrims we did just for the Anger Games. And for our team, we did 37. There's some teams that did like 40, 45-ish scrim sessions. And like most experienced teams will definitely be doing like somewhere to 40 to 50 scrims in total. And when you put that into context of this being a tournament where the prizes are really minimum, like even if you place fairly high,
What
you're
other
talking
prizes?
about maybe. I think for this one, it's mostly skins and some plex, but the scale of it is so small that even if you place like fairly high, if you have a team of like 15 people, you're talking a couple billion ISK per person. So
That's not too
the
bad.
idea, yeah, I mean it's nice, but
Yeah.
when you're talking like for our team alone was 37 sessions of 2 to 3 hours of practice matches. That's
Yeah.
not a great
I,
return on your time investment.
that very much sounds like you have to enjoy the practice sessions.
You definitely have to.
Yeah.
If you aren't in a team that all has the same mindset of like really being willing to put in the grind, you're gonna very quickly burn out, get frustrated, get people that just don't like flying with each other anymore, and yeah,
Yeah. I figure no matter what the level of commitment is, you gotta make sure everyone on the team has the same level of commitment, right?
for sure.
Yeah.
Because you can do like a low effort team. You could just say, hey, we're gonna do one practice a week, whatever. It'll be fun. We want to get a feel for the tournament and what it's like, and you'll still learn a few things, and you're still gonna steal fits from other teams and figure out why they fit their ships that way. You're probably not gonna get far in the tournament, but you can still have fun with it.
Yeah.
But that needs to be your mindset. If you really want to win, you need a team that is ready to put in the hours.
So if I wanted to start the Init AT team, when is AT anyway? Did they announce it yet? They didn't
They
probably.
haven't announced it yet, but
Yeah, probably after Anger Games too,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Makes sense. Um, so if I wanted to build an inner team and be the best possible team captain, like what would you think should I focus on?
Like the first goal was just knowing, hey, how do you want to run your team? Do you want to have like a really serious, all right, we're all going to try our best and put in the time? Or do you
Of
off the
course.
get go know, like, hey, we're just going to give this a punt and have some fun with it?
Yeah, no, the commitment wasn't even in question. Like if I
Yeah,
would do it, I would ask everyone to be a little bit. I mean, I don't want to say super try hard or anything, but a certain level of commitment. I would say, you
yeah.
know, maybe 4 practice sessions a week. I would say that kind of
War
thing.
practice is already like pretty intense.
Yeah.
Our team did about average 2 or 3 a week, depending on when it
Oh,
works out.
well, I mean, we
But
have to.
that's
We
because
have.
we start fairly far ahead.
Yeah, we have to catch up too, right? I mean, we've never had an AT team that really pushed ultra hard. We always had
Mm,
like, hey, we're doing this for fun, you know?
yeah.
Let's see. And then sometimes we got quite far actually. I think like at least 2 ATs we got quite far. Um, but yeah, I think
It-
one major issue we always had was the guys that would be best to run these. They're also super busy with all the alliance
Yeah.
stuff. So
It takes a lot of your time
yeah,
away.
yeah.
And whenever I'm doing a team, it's just I know that that's less evenings a week where I'd maybe be running a fleet with Spectre Fleet, for example. So that's something that's always a bit of a commitment, especially with these smaller tournaments. Like with this one for the Anger Games, I already said, hey, I'm gonna not sacrifice as much because I don't want to like cancel my other things I'm doing in real life. Um, but for the actual Alliance tournament, that's
You guys gotta go
probably
crazy.
three months or so where you know that you're just putting most of your other things aside for this, which is definitely a bit of a commitment.
Yeah, but like, see, I think people also enjoy going hardcore
Oh,
on
for sure.
stuff. Like, be it AT, be it another game, to just like dive really deep. Like, you know, go
And
like do the no life or stuff as if you were still a student, you know?
oh, for sure. Yeah, like that's part of the fun of it is when you're really committed, taking those like extra bits of time, like that extra hour late at night to talk about like slight differences between two fits of a specific ship. That's how you optimize your stuff and win. And those like late night discussions are
Sounds
sometimes the
super
moment
fun.
where like out at the last minute of the night, we're like, hey, what if we do this version of a fit instead? And we come up with some random new stuff that's completely cookie and like weird, but just happens to fit perfectly. That's super satisfying.
Yeah, I
And
can.
if you get to use it in a match, then that feeling of the time and effort that you put into it really like pays off.
I can really imagine, like, as a theory crafter myself, like, I love to just sit and, I mean, people on stream probably don't. I love to sit on Piper and just, like, cook stuff, you know? I can only
Yep.
imagine if you have like-minded people doing the same and you throw shit at, like, you know, fittings at you, at each other, and then every now and then there's a nugget in there, like a golden fucking fit that just, like, solves a certain problem or so. Dude, that must be super nice. And
It's
I've done some theory crafting for AT stuff before. So, like, making setup, like, uh configs and stuff. I've done that
mm,
before just for fun on the side, and then gave it
it's
to
very
RT too.
fun because with the points restrictions and everything else on top, it's always just like you're always trading off things. Like that's the thing I love about making fits in EVE in general is that you're always trading something for something else that you could have, and then you add in the extra layers of like how does this fit in a composition for a team. It's even more challenging at times.
Yeah, and every now and then though, you make a fit and you feel like you didn't give up much to gain like a lot, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I remember
Especially
like
like there's the extra rules for like power grid implants and stuff like that. If you manage to just like
mm,
manage to shuffle things around and realize like, ooh, I can get a bunch more speed if we do this and only lose like a tiny bit of tank, that's nice.
yeah, what are the rules in anger games anyway? No implants at all?
Um, you can use up to 3% hardwiring, so power
Oh,
grid's 3%, rate of
all
fire
right.
3%, those kind of implants.
I mean, I guess that's reasonable, yeah.
Yep, but it's just that like tiny extra little layer that you can be creative with on power grid and CPU that just
Yeah.
opens up a little bit more at times.
No.
But
Um,
no, one of my favorite examples as well is for the Alliance tournament, me and Baza, we had a conversation that I think went on until like 3 a.m. in the morning, something ridiculous, like super
that's where the
late at
best
night,
stuff happens, dude.
over the tiniest difference. Could we substitute our hyena in a Kingslayer comp with a crewer and get away with it? We argued back and forth, like, no, the crewer has shorter web range. You can't do that. It's slower. You can't do that. But against the right composition, those trade offs didn't matter. So if the enemy bans hyena and they're like, haha, you can't bring the hyena, and you come in with the crewer and you still pull off what you need to do, uh, that got us top 6 in the Alliance tournament last year.
Nice.
Those like late night discussions being like, no, we can pull this off with a crewer. It still works. Just believe in me, and that paid off. Like it's so much fun when that works out.
Ultra late at night or early morning, that's where the best stuff
Yep.
happens. That's how,
Yeah.
you know, whenever people ask about the eviction of rage, that's when the idea for that came up too. We were like
Yeah.
super late.
Cool.
No, and then the one guy says like you can't do this, and the other guy says like actually we can. It's like,
Yep.
and then you know that's how cool shit happens in this game. I think when there's
That's
like
really fun because yeah, we just have so many of those discussions where like cooking up a slightly different fit or slightly different ship to fill the same role. Oh, but what if we ban this and then bring it? Maybe it still works. It's like there's infinite options for how to play those things.
and I think the best teams in the tournament scene are the ones that enjoy that part like the most
For sure.
because
Yeah.
you gain so much, you gain such an advantage, but you're having fun with it anyway. It's not like like someone sitting there theory crafting and thinking like, oh shit, I have to theory craft for the next hour or two. Like, no, that's
No,
not
like
that's not
most of
what's
those
happening.
teams are excited for the rule set because
Exactly.
then they can start cooking things up.
Yeah, yeah.
And but it's also one of my favorite ways to like show the difference between a good and a bad team because you can copy somebody else's setup, have the exact same fits, and you can still eat shit
That
like
is
completely, even
practice
if
comes in
you
there.
fly the same thing.
Yeah.
So the understanding behind it is where some of the real fun is.
You know what? That is actually what I always tell people when they ask, like, hey, should I, like, what do I do? Like, I want to start FCing. Like, do you have any tips? Like, like the number one thing I always say is a very simplified thing is have a plan. And that it
Mm.
has nothing to do with like, you need to like know exactly what you're doing and everything. That's not what I mean when I say that. I mean, you should have a plan. So when you come back after the fleet, no matter what happens, you have something to analyze. Because if you go out without a plan in the first place,
Mm.
like you gotta sit down and think about stuff. Like if
Yeah,
the
you
plan
gotta
was to
have
just
your
undock and roam, yeah, you did undock and roam. There's nothing to analyze, right?
yeah.
But it should
If
always
you
go a
have
little deeper.
a proper idea of like this is how everything applies and how well it works and what targets are
Yeah,
a real threat, then you can compare of like, oh wait, no, that died way more easily than I thought it would. Okay, maybe we can,
yeah.
drop off some damage and fit more tank or something.
Yeah, and the next thing I always tell them is like make your own doctrine. It doesn't matter if it's the best. Make your own doctrine,
Mhm.
and it's basically the same thing, right? Because they understand what the idea behind it is, so they'll
It's
apply it that
also
way.
a
Might
great
not
way to
work,
see like
right?
what somebody's thinking behind making a doctrine. Just even if you just make one, they don't have to end up using it, but you can get such a good view of like how's this person thinking about their ships. Ask them questions like, "Cool, all right, you fitted up these real 4-axes, whatever. How do you think you're going to use them? What are you planning to use them against, and how do you think they're going to work?"
Yeah.
And then you immediately get a good view of like how they think things actually apply damage or
Best example is Skybreakers. Like I had them
yep.
in Python. Like I played around with them, and then I saw like, man, 10 MN isn't that hard to fit on them. They have a good chunky amount of EHP on 10 MN. So even though knowing 10 MN is going to be a struggle, just mobility wise, it's just
Mm.
like, it's going to be a little sluggish. They were way more sluggish than I thought. I got to be honest. Like,
Yep. 10 MN
to
is painful sometimes.
Yeah, it was way slower than I thought. I really did. I was kind of like, I don't want to say shocked, but um, I expected us a little bit more speed here. But um,
The difficulty also is with the just keeping your speed up is
yeah,
so complicated in a fight. If the
uh,
enemy is not moving much, you could manage it, but if your enemy is
yeah.
also decently fast, trying to like actually coordinate where you're going, staying in range, and keeping your speed up for tank is super hard.
Um, One big advantage is for the anchor, right? So I was thinking I'm gonna probably switch to 5 It slightly
Mm.
different fit than yours actually, because I think you go with a one shield extender fit, but
Yeah, just because the power grid was very hard to pull off. Wait, did I? I
I
can't
squeezed it
remember.
on though. Two shield extenders, man. The
I have to open up
EHP.
Python now. I don't remember.
The live Python session, it's happening. There you go. But
Of course.
two extenders, 38k EHP on a
I'm enough of
resist
a
bonus frig is
I'm enough of
insane,
a
dude.
nerd to have Python installed at work even, so
I mean, it looks like a work program, right? Like if the boss walks in and you're in Python, he's like, man, that dude's working hard.
yeah, no, we ran with the just a single extender and a EM and thermal amp just so we could keep a nano in the lows because I was just more worried about not having a nano and like missing out on the speed. If you get any other frigate fleet after you, it's going to be very difficult otherwise.
Yeah. I think frigate fleets are not the issue, really.
They shouldn't be, but the last time I brought anything out like Skybreakers, the problem was that we just got rammed and couldn't really keep range well enough. So it was more a safety
But
measure to keep positioning.
so my thinking is they can't ram you because any frigate fleet is gonna have less EHP than you. That was my thinking. So just zap
You're
yourselves.
not wrong. You could take the dice roll and just hope that the bounces go for the enemy more than you.
No, I mean you have more EHP.
Theoretically, you have more tank, yeah.
Yeah, 38k EHP is insane, right?
38k. I need to see. Is that
I'm
with
telling
links
you.
or
I should have
is
just
that
said
with
you.
links or?
That's of course that's what links. Come on,
Yeah,
dude.
okay. I was about to say because like that my
Uh,
fit's like 16k. I was like, oh, I was already wondering that can't be.
but
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, yeah, I can understand the idea behind that because
yeah.
yeah, that
And
was
then
one of the things we were worried about as well. Is like if we jump gate and try to shoot something, we're just immediately gonna annihilate our own fleet.
yeah, if you have chunky logis with it, right?
Mm.
I was thinking like if you just do old school like primary calling, like let's say it's a chunky assault frig fleet, whatever it is, retributions for example, right?
Yeah.
And they ram you, you could just like go one by one. If you zap yourselves, it doesn't actually matter. Like you can tank this if you are balled up enough. It spreads out enough.
It
It's
was
fine.
fun as well when we took it out. We ended up fighting what was it, Horde, I think. And they came in with a Ferox fleet on top of our bubble DSS, so of course, perfect. We can at least zap the entire fleet to start it off with. Apparently, a quarter of their fleet DC'd the moment the fight started, just because
It
of the
happened to
zap.
us too. Yeah,
Yep.
it happened to us
Every
too.
time I've had this, had a Edencom fleet out, I've had the same thing. The same when we went
Yeah.
after Brave with Skybreakers way back when, or sorry, no, the cruiser, the Stormbringer.
Stormbringers, yeah.
They also reported like a good chunk of their fleet just crashed.
Yeah, happened to us quite a bit. We have a Stormbringer fleet too. Happened there. Also happened with the Skybreakers several times. But you know what's interesting? It was the same guys that had the disconnects. So we had like 3
Okay.
disconnects in those fleets, and it was the same guys. And someone said we didn't get to test it. Nobody had an disconnect after that. But someone said it had to do with the effects. So if you turn effects off. So some people, if they have effects on, do have those disconnects. So like if you run into that issue again, tell the disconnect
We also
guys
had
to just...
a weird effect where the entire fleet of Skybreakers, if you zoomed in too close, had a bunch of like blue sparkling light effects. Like the entire fleet was having it.
That's weird.
Very weird stuff going on with those things. So
I mean, they're not very much tested, right? Like
no,
nobody really flies them, which
which
is
is a shame because the paper potential is there,
the
but
paper potential, yeah.
Actually getting it to work is very difficult.
Yeah, the last fleet I did stream the second one. The first one was, I don't want to say uneventful. We went to threat staging and we got unlucky. A goon fleet was already there. So we ended up camping the Anseblex, and we killed a bunch, but it was all singular targets. I was kind of looking for fights.
Oh, yeah.
And knowing that horde staging is a little bit more busy in your time zone. It just is, right? Like, they just go like form, and they just, even if they want it or not, they'll form twice the numbers just by accident, you know? So
it was very entertaining just to see how it worked out, though, because at the start of the fight, we had something like 80 Skybreakers against a Ferox fleet with links and everything. Like, that's raw hit points wise, that's difficult, but we still managed to get quite a few of them before they ended up spreading out. The moment they spread out, though, you just see the target damage. It's just nothing. Absolutely nothing.
See, I was always like, I think they fought you guys, and they adjusted for us. When we showed up, they had 10 Hugins or so.
Oh,
they had double
nasty.
tracking computers on the Ferox navies.
Okay,
so
that's just mean.
Yeah, I think they just had...
Ferox navies as well. No, they brought T1 Feroxes against us.
No, they learned some lessons from you guys, and I think they applied them well too. But I also think I made some mistakes there when we fought them. Like I should have been more patient. Like, patience is so underrated as an FC. Where you just like take that extra minute, just warp to a save, think about it for a second, like how do you want to set it up and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But no, I just like went straight to
one of my
ESS.
best features.
No, yeah, it's sometimes I'm super patient. Like sometimes I can do it, but sometimes I just don't have the patience for this kind of stuff, right? And I think I wanted to fight. I wanted it a little bit too quickly and put myself under too much pressure, and I had to handle too many things because I think there's two fundamental different approaches the way we fly the Skybreakers too. You only fly Skybreakers and Logis, and then, you know, some support, of course. My approach was more the style of how the Hydra guys flew the Stormbringers, which is they bring Stormbringers plus some missile damage to...
Yeah, they use it more as like a support ship.
So exactly. So my idea was more of like, I have a strong Skybreaker wing, putting pressure on the fleet for like long term, and then I have some targeted damage to take out key ships like Hugins, for example. But then they had so many Hugins and so many Logis, like there was no way we would.
Yeah, but I mean
that's
ideally where they should shine the best, because even just like 10 or 20 of those things just causes so much havoc in broadcast that good luck figuring out who's the primary target.
Good. I mean, I gotta be fair. We didn't have the flycatcher numbers on the second fleet that I was hoping for. So I was kind of hoping one day we'd get 100 Skybreakers and 50 flycatchers. That's the goal, the end goal at the end. That's a chunky fleet.
That would be very nasty.
Yeah, that's a chunky fleet. But the first fleet we had, I think, 100 Skybreakers, but then only 20 flycatchers. already pretty solid. But then that's not the one we got that hard fight with, right? The second fleet, there were some other factors. The numbers were just not quite as high. So we had, I think, only 10 flycatchers and like maybe 60, 70 skybreakers. I don't know how many we had. But I felt like it was just a little bit on the DPS side, a little bit too low to kill these Hugins.
Yeah. No, we already had to build a fight when they started to get like 3 or so. Just because the moment that the fight ended at the ESS and we had to bounce out and chase after them, they kept the entire fleet spread out at all times. So they were just warping around in an orb, and then our single target damage against something like a Hugin just wasn't there to kill it.
But wouldn't you say on that scale, if they spread out, that can be a disadvantage too if you have the critical mass on the Skybreakers? Like
if we had enough
to
kill like a single target, yeah, but even with like 80 of them, you're talking 40 DPS per, which is just not a lot.
Yeah.
It's weird as well because the cruiser has such a huge leap in damage compared to the frigate.
And I think the key thing also is the range, right?
Yep.
I think that's
you have to use long range ammo with the frigate.
Yeah.
Which is
short range ammo just doesn't. Yeah.
It's such a gamble. You could do it, but your entire fleet has to stay within 10 and 16 kilometers.
And now try that on 10 MN, right? Super hardcore important.
Yeah, no, that's impossible. Yeah. Genuinely impossible.
Yeah,
or you just have to leave your afterburner off.
Yeah.
No, it's fun to play around.
I tried it once. Like I did switch to short range ammo that one time. So we were fighting on the ESS at a ping-ish, right? And then the bubbles were done. So the reinforcements landed on 0. So I went for the reinforcements and thought maybe if there's 10 guys that are just reinforcements now, if we zap these guys with short range ammo, that could be solid.
So dangerous though, because you have such a tiny margin of error. Somebody just needs to approach 6 kilometers, and now you're zapping your own fleet.
Yeah, but like, see, the 10 MN, that's the advantage. It's missile application, right? So if we are burning with that small of a SIG, you'd only take like half the damage of the zaps. And they have decent amount of EHP, so as long as it's enough of us then getting into range, it's fine. Like I haven't zapped ourselves to any significant degree so far. And I've tried. I honestly have tried.
The base speed is interesting enough that I haven't actually looked at it yet, but 1MN could be viable. Just because they are insanely fast.
Yeah, I've thought about it too. Yeah.
We actually use them in some Alliance Tournament and Anger game setups as well, just because they're quite cheap on points. That, and they're fast as fuck when you want them to. They can go like 5 kilometers a second if you just need something to just zoom in there and go tackle it.
Yeah, that's one thing I kept asking, actually. Like, why don't we see more Skybreakers in the tournaments? Because every now and then they talk about the whole Logi drone, like there's too many flights of Logi drones. It's basically a projected smart bomb, right? It's like
that, and in armor setups, they also have the nice bonus of having a couple of extra spare mid slots for like remote sensor boosters and stuff like that. So you do see them. It's just that in the Anger games, you are so limited on slots with 7 people. If 2 of those go to your Logi, and like 2 of those or 3 of those go to like your core DPS, now you have nothing left.
Yeah.
You need something in there for like control as well, and then suddenly you're like, finding an opening for one of those ships is difficult. But yeah, like I said, sometimes like an armor skybreaker, just to do like long range zaps and kill the very squishy rep bots is actually quite strong.
Yeah, that's a good explanation for why we see it in AT but not in AG too much. Right? Because in AT it's like 10 ships, I believe, was the last rule, right?
You just end up having a lot more like lower end to round out, and then having one of those frigates, considering what it's able to do, the damage against rep bots is significant enough that you have to make sure that you hold your rep bots in until they're actually necessary, because otherwise you will just waste them.
I mean, it makes sense too, because rep bots are wasps, which is Kaldari, so they have most of the hit points and shield, so EM is pretty good, and they deal EM kinetic, so...
The shield rep bots are. The armor rep bots are the Amar ones.
Oh, you're right.
Infiltrators.
Yeah, I didn't know. I don't know why I only thought of shield rep bots at this point.
I'm so used to seeing the armor ones, like that image is seared into my head.
But I mean, still, it is some kinetic damage, so it's not too bad, I guess.
No, they're very good at killing rep bots. Like even just one of those frigates, even in an armor fit with no extra damage mods or anything, like it will still kill rep bots very quickly.
Yeah, that's what I figured. So yeah, but yeah, the limited number on AG tournaments, it's
in AG, it can be so like difficult to find enough slots for all of the things that you want to have in a composition that we've even had versions of some of our comps with one armor Logi frigate and using rep bots on the Logi frigate, and it surprisingly works. Because we just didn't have an extra slot for a second Logi frigate. Well, we'll just do it with one.
I mean, it's a little ballsy, but hey.
It is very high risk.
That guy gotta bring his A game.
Yeah, it's super high risk, but like a bunch of heavy armor maintenance bots on top of a Deacon is surprisingly effective. This was also one of those things me and Baza had an argument over that I told him, like, no, this is way too suicidal. If somebody kills your rep bots, you've just now lost the match.
Yeah.
But it can pay off.
I mean, that's another thing with AG. You have setups, and then you bring one ban, like the whole ban meta game. You ban this to throw them off, maybe even, and then you bring something that's a little bit of a curveball. Just a one Logifrig thing. I mean, surely you gain something from it, right? That would be my first thought. When I come up against a team that has only one Logifrig, I would think like, what did they gain? Like, what were they trying to do here, right? So
it's more common when you're talking about like the shield rush setups, where yes, okay, they only have one scalpel, but a single scalpel still isn't super easy to kill. Like you still need something like light missiles or fast drones to actually kill it. And in the time that you're killing that, there is now a shield rush on top of your like fancy battleship eating into it. So maybe you should be more worried about killing their DPS.
Yeah.
So there are setups like that where it works out quite reliably.
Yeah, I think that's where experience comes in, right? Where you just have to, like, you see it, and then in that moment like, what are the problem ships here, right? You gotta see that right away, and then go for the right stuff.
Part of the fun is landing on grid, getting like 30 seconds. Oh, the countdown's already started. Good luck. Better make your decisions quick.
And then everyone's like, okay, do we do this? Do we do that? And,
the panic starts setting in, but that's the fun. Like I've been playing quite a long time now. I think like 12 years, but tournaments still gives me the shakes.
Oh, really?
It's one of the few things that still give me the shakes.
Nice. Maybe I have to one day.
I genuinely, like most people that ask me, I always recommend it because you can learn so much, just like even theory wise and like idea wise, you can learn so much from it. The different way that you pilot in line or in tournaments as well is super interesting. Communication with you and your teammates and knowing what to call out, like actually important, or when you're being primaried, or versus when, well, I'm being primaried, but I'm fine for now. I don't need to yell over our team right now.
Yeah,
there's a lot of those things that you can learn.
That's a skill I think you learn also in like an FC team. Like, in an FC team, like an Init, I don't know how it is in other lines necessarily, but I assume it's very similar. You have that one guy who's like the main FC. You have other FCs in there, of course, but then you also have people that only do like the support stuff, like having the sinos in the right places, having eyes, having like filling special roles, or being ready to form reinforcements or whatever, right? This kind of stuff. And when it comes to the intel stuff, there are some people that just don't have the experience to know when not to say anything, right? Some people just think, oh, every info is good info. Like, no,
it happens on every level though. Like even on like a small, like, hey, we're roaming with like 30 to 50 to whatever amount of people. There's still moments
FC,
where
there's
like
an Amar shuttle on the gate ping.
Exactly. Like the amount of time somebody's like, "Oh, I could tackle this T1 frigate" when I'm working with a bunch of boosters to try and get like a Vindicator off of a station to kill it. I'm like, thanks. Not important right now.
Yeah.
But that's experience of just knowing what's important, what other people need to know versus what's nice to know, and But yeah, you can learn a lot of that kind of communication, because communication, especially if you're like a logistics pilot, being able to communicate in a tournament format is difficult. You need to talk a lot. You need to tell people, "Hey, you're burning out of position. I won't be able to rep you if you get tackled right now." Stuff like that. Like, you need to be on the ball and very talkative. Um, which is always difficult, because like we try and practice that during matches, but then the stakes aren't very high, and it's like, oh, we know how to win this match, so everybody's kind of
Yeah.
calm, so they're not saying a lot.
Put some
And then the
stress on
match
it
day
and it
happens,
changes.
everybody's rapid fire talking, rapid fire talking. It's very
Yeah.
funny to see the switch. We
Yeah,
had
yeah.
a
You can't easily simulate stress, right? It's like in the
mhm.
military, really. They
Yep.
they always try to, but like you can't really simulate it. Like once you're under
We
that
had
stress.
a logistics pilot who was flying a Logifrigate duo, who during scrims is a fairly calm and quiet person. And then during the tournament, suddenly he's telling people what to do and who to like pre-rep and everything. It's very funny to see.
No, I can imagine. Um, we
But
talked
yeah, no, like I was
about.
saying, I would always recommend people to try it, just because you can learn so many different things from it.
Yeah, you know what? You're not the first one I had on who's like a tournament captain, right? And every time I talk to anyone, I'm like, man, I should probably give it a shot at some point, right? But I'm always scared of the whole workload that it entails because, you know.
Um, I mean, if you have people that are willing to help, it's a lot more manageable. Because, for example, with our current setup, Baza does all the organizing. He does like, all right, we're gonna go scrim, and he makes most of the sheets and like prepares everything. Most of my job is just on grid telling people what to do, and then talking with Baza about like our theory and fitting and what we're planning on doing. So that already makes it so much more doable, because back in the day when I ran the team for Spectre Fleet, I was pretty much doing everything, and I noticed I was just burning myself out trying to do everything.
Yeah, no, no, I can only imagine. Yep, burning out
If you
is a
have
real
to
thing, and
do everything from like the fits to preparing things on Thunderdome to organizing the matches with other teams and everything, if you have to do that and do everything on grid, that's that's a lot more painful.
yeah, that's another thing that I learned from the Skybreaker thing. Now, actually, I didn't have to learn that. I was reminded that if you do a fleet that's complex, right?
Mm.
Which is Skybreakers, it's a little bit more complex if you have the Skybreaker DPS and then you have targeted DPS, like singular target DPS, basically. And then you want to anchor properly too, right?
Yep.
Usually, target calling and anchoring in one job, you can't do this. You're going to be 95% efficient if you have some experience. But
Yeah.
now put a second target on top. Now that's cut in half, I think. You really are only 50% efficient. You should always have one role of those three in someone else's hands. Someone else has to
Yep.
take care of either the Skybreaker DPS or the targeted DPS or the anchoring, or you split it all up, right? You have like two people and do one anchoring and one is the Skybreaker guy, and you just call targets for the the targeted DPS.
It's interesting, because like on Spectre Fleet's scale of like the content that we usually do, I can just kind of FC everything myself. But sometimes we get like event fleets, and then we're suddenly, oh, hey, we have like 150 to 200 people. Okay, let's get some help in here, because yeah, then it just becomes
Yeah.
impossible. There's just too many moving parts.
And I assume in an NPSI setting, it's probably harder to build that team, So you can just like say, hey, there's always that guy. He's
Um,
always around and reliable and good at this.
I wouldn't say it's hard. I mean, yeah, okay, fairly. It's probably more difficult to find those people, but there's some people in Spectre Fleet that have been there since the foundation, like over 10 years ago, and there's just a couple of those guys that if they're online, I know who I can ask for any specific role, and they'll take care of it. So yeah, I would imagine it's harder for newer MPS IFCs, but there's definitely people that have the experience to cooperate in
Yeah.
any kind of role that you need them to.
You just gotta find out who those guys are. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, it's the same in an alliance, really, right?
Yeah, I think if you're a brand new FC and you don't know all the people in the alliance yet, then yeah, you're
Yeah.
gonna have the same
And
issue.
they don't
But
know you, right? I think a lot of times it comes also down to like people that want to help, they don't want to waste their time either, though, right? If they,
Hmm.
I've seen this before, like where people come in, they want to FC, and then they don't put in work. They want to show up and everything's
Oh
laid
yeah,
out for them. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah,
hey,
yeah,
how
yeah,
many
yeah.
Walmart connections do we have? And is everything seated? And like this kind of stuff, like everything, like to a degree, you should outsource these things, of course, but you gotta put in your work too, right? It's like
Yeah.
you're not gonna have a lot of people show up for you if you never put in
It's
work, right?
I know the pain on that. Well, I shouldn't say the pain. I know the way that goes quite well because with MPSI, I think that we have it even worse because there's no like objective or like you're not stuck with Spectre Fleet as your alliance in a sense.
Mm,
So
yeah,
if you don't have fun doing those roles and doing those things that the FC requests you to,
they'll just not
you're
show
just not
up.
going to show up. Yep,
Yeah, no,
they're just
no,
gone.
no.
So if
I
you
mean,
don't
it's the
treat those
same.
people with the respect they deserve and make them feel valued, then they're just gonna fuck off and not join your fleets anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that different. Like, I'm talking fun fleets here too, right?
Mm.
Obviously, strat ops to a degree, you'll always get a certain amount of numbers, right? There's
No.
always going to be that just because it's the alliance. But like, I'm also talking about fan ops here, right? Like, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like, you know, it just doesn't make sense to put all the work on people all the time, you know?
No, and you gotta find that balance because otherwise people just yeah, even if they still show up, there's also just like the level of like how willing they are to commit even and how excited they are for certain things. Like that can make a big difference in your fleet.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
If
I
everybody's kind of
always
like low energy and hesitant versus like everybody's high energy and they want to YOLO and they just want to full send it, that's a very different feeling.
that was always one thing I struggled with. I always felt like I come over, or come across like a little bit more of a low energy kind of guy. I'm not that emotional dude, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not a hype man, you know what I
yeah.
mean? So I always struggled with that a little bit, and I always looked at other FCs. A good example, for example, is a Pro God, right? Pro God
Yep.
Legend. I don't think he's necessarily the best FC, really. I don't, right? But I always thought he brought a certain amount of energy in there, so that's what people liked about him, right? It wasn't really
Yeah,
um,
but I mean, you
the
don't
FC
even need to
itself.
be the best FC. It's like even if you make bad decisions, but you have full commitment and full energy behind those decisions, yeah, maybe you're not picking the right primary targets, but those people are still going to be shooting the right target. Like
Yeah,
they're still going to be following orders correctly, versus somebody who's like hesitant, like, oh, maybe shoot this. Let's try this.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Always makes a big difference.
yeah. I think in that Skybreaker fleet, the last one, I wasn't quite. I mean, that's always the thing, right? If you don't know what you're doing, just do something,
Yep.
and just like
Yeah, no, really,
I
like full
wasn't 100
commitment.
percent
Just send
sure
it.
that. Yeah, exactly. So we'd try in some things. It was a bit too much on that one, but
It's
yeah,
also kind of like the attitude that you have with a group going into it. With Spectre Fleet, we know there's a fairly decent chance that we're going to feed if we bring out something fancy. But
I would say
if you,
MPSI.
as the FC, are excited to do it, you warn people, hey, this might be a feed, but let's go have fun. And you send the fleet in with full commitment, it's still going to be good fun. And that's always like
Yeah,
the big difference. Versus if you're hesitating and having a bad time, then yeah.
it'll translate to the fleet. Yeah, yeah, I think so too. Similar to streaming. I gotta be honest.
Mm, for sure.
It's very hard. Like if I don't feel like playing Eve at all,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna stream. I'm just
Yeah.
not gonna stream. Like, and people who have have been watching for a while, they know every now and then I have that phase. That might be a week, might be even longer.
Huh.
Where I'm like, no, dude, I'm not gonna log in right now and just like act like no, I'm not an actor. I just do what I like to do, and then hopefully people will watch it then. But
I think
to
that's also
force
the
myself
reason that
is it's just not. It's not gonna make for a good stream. It's just not right.
now it's also the reason that like I think bluntly put, if I was a Alliance FC for like a no group or anything, and didn't do Spectre Fleet, I probably would have quit the game ages ago already. But with Spectre Fleet, it's also the same with like streams. If I'm not feeling like doing a fleet, okay, cool. I'm just not going to do a fleet.
Same
And
for
if
me.
I'm motivated and there's a fun event going on, I can do multiple fleets a week and just have great fun with it.
Yeah, same for me and streaming. Right. The main reason I started streaming, I needed a bit of a change. For you, it was the Spectre Fleet stuff, or like that's what I mean. You have always done it probably, but I just started streaming to like have a different focus, right? And yeah. Otherwise, I would have quit. I think. Otherwise, I didn't see the point after the big war was over and stuff. Especially,
yeah.
I was like, what am I doing here? You know, am I even like? Do I even like do 06 still? Like, should I leave the Alliance? People ask me all the time, like, hey, if you're not FC for the Alliance and you're an FC, like, what are you in the Alliance for, you know? It's just like...
Yeah, but no, it's difficult
it
because,
sounds
like,
a little rude, but they don't mean it rude. They're just asking, you know? And, no.
You got to have something to motivate you. And for me, respectfully, is just knowing that I can look at Pytha and be like, oh, that ship looks fun. Let's do something crazy with it. And I can take out the fleet the next or the same evening. And nobody's going to tell me no. I could just have whatever kind of fun out.
Yeah, I can do that in it too. Like, we traditionally have way too many doctrines anyway. People are so used to that. We have like, actually, all right, there's a bit of controversy going on with in it. Because I called it a mini Pikas. Okay. I'm an old school guy, all right? There's 151 Pokemon. I'm not super deep into that stuff, but that's what I knew, right?
Yeah.
And we called the Stormbringers. I didn't choose that name, but Shines did, I think. He called them the Pika Fleet, all right?
Yeah.
And I called it Mini Pika, so it's a mini version of the Pika Fleet. But apparently, there's a Pokemon called Pichu, and that's a new... Yeah. And everyone's like, oh, you can't call it Mini Pika. But all my fittings, everywhere in Pytha, on all, they're all called Mini Pikas. I'm not renaming the doctrine now.
You want to know something that's even worse than that? Traditionally, for Alliance Tournament, you've always only been able to use faction ammo. Now, the geniuses behind the Younger Games decided, all right, we're going to let them use pirate ammo. So everybody's fits from 19 years of Alliance tournaments suddenly have to be changed to pirate ammo instead of faction ammo.
But isn't that ammo super expensive still, even though they had these boxes?
But it's the Younger Games is on Thunderdome, so you just spawn it.
Oh, okay. And that
just means that everybody has to change their fits of like hundreds of fits just for like a 1% DPS difference.
Every time you have to tell everyone, hey, did you pick the right ammo? And I hope everyone did. And there's not one guy saying
the lazy. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, and there's not one guy then saying yeah, and just ignoring it and saying like I'm too lazy right now.
Yep. We had a running joke in our practices where we had a canister or a corp hanger in the Thunderdome with all of the pirate ammo spawned in, so you could just grab it from there. So Baz didn't have to update all of the fits. And some of us were just too lazy to constantly grab the different ammo, so we just called using faction ammo training weights instead of pirate ammo as our excuse.
And then when you know what doctrines, you change the ammo for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Alpha is for noobs. Real men use game fittings. What the fuck, McLovin?
No, I need my graphs. I need my specific versions and everything.
No, I can't. Like, beyond.
Plus, in-game is a pain in the ass. If you don't have like rigging 5 for something, you're gonna get slightly different numbers than everybody else. Like, you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Some people, like, sometimes I'm being made fun of for never using in-game fittings when I don't know certain things. Like, I don't know, like, how do you put the fittings, the ammo in cargo in the in-game fitting, this kind of stuff, you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, yeah, how did it work again? And
it's tiny differences as well, because like you can run into some weird stuff if you don't have like missile rigging skills to 5, which almost nobody tends to really train because it's such a niche thing. Your fit that is now like 1% over on CPU doesn't fit anymore because of the CPU drawbacks on them and stuff like that. So it's like super niche stuff like that. No, you just need to use Pytha so you know everything is set.
Imagine having not all rigging skills. Yeah. I mean,
McLovin, I know you don't have every subcap to 5, so
he got a point though. I mean, come on, rigging skills.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I have like what is it? I have almost all subcap stuff to 5. I'm getting there. Slowly.
So another thing on my list actually. Have you seen the patch notes, or like not patch notes? What do we call it?
The trailer
Announcement
notes.
stuff.
Yeah.
The information. Did you see
Yes.
the information?
I have digested the information and I am quite interested.
For Loseka even.
Well, even for nullsec as well, because the passive mining is the one that really
true.
strikes me the biggest. Because one of my main like complaints and the thing that I've been ranting on for quite some while is there's not really any reason to fight over space at the moment. There's enough of it, and it's all kind of worth the same. You're not making more money like directly by taking more systems. But with passive mining,
You actually have to
suddenly
spend
every
money.
system has a very definable value per month. So
Yeah.
taking more systems is more income per month. And that alone suddenly makes things very interesting again. And
So-
I hope that that's a reason for people to actually fight over space again.
But you as a Loseka, I don't know quite. I can't really guess it too well. But like, one major concern is that in Losec, especially Snuff will take on a lot of these moons and just have them passively. And like, what do you think? Is that a huge issue? What's the percentage? Like, how many moons are just going to be Snuff moons? You know?
We were already joking, or at least I was with some people, that it's probably going to end up with a Snuff owns half of Losec, Big Up owns the other half of Losec kind of situation. With like groups like Sedition and Shadow Cartel, like yeah, okay, maybe they claim some systems for themselves, but
I mean, it comes down to the details too, right? That's what I always say on stream, guys. Like, the details are super important because we don't know how exactly the passive thing, like, is it one timer? Is it two timers? Can you kill it instantly? Can you just, or do you just capture it?
There was also like
you know?
interesting suggestions on like, okay, what's the counterplay? Because you used to have those like siphon things that you could place down to slowly steal some of that stuff. Okay, cool. Maybe this passively mines everything. But you still need to collect all of the mined ore. What if that becomes a place where you're vulnerable and your haulers could get ganked or stuff like that?
I just had a thought.
There are a lot of details like that that are going to make it interesting. But
what about instead of having? I mean, we already know that's not the case, okay? Before I say this is not what's happening. I already know that because they said there's going to be structures or whatever. Like, it's going to be, I'm pretty sure at least, that's not going to be. But like, what if you had it like an ESS in every system? So you like, the structure is just there, right? Nobody owns the structure really. You just claim whatever it generates. So then the structure always has a timer. So once a week, every moon that's passive mineable could have like a fixed timer. You don't have to ref it, but it's open. Like, everyone knows, hey, at this time, if you're there, you can claim it for yourself. And that's it.
There's a lot of ways you could make that interesting because you could say, well, the alliance that owns it can control, like, all right, once a week, all of the ore is gatherable, but at a specific time, and the alliance can set it. But that means they could still be contested. You could still get like your haulers hot dropped or something.
Yeah, but what if there was? See, time zone is an issue too there, right?
No.
What if you split everything into like 3 time zones, for example, right? And then you say every moon, like so they have one of the 3 timers, and they all come out at the same time, just like spread out around the 3 time zones. There's no investment there, so now it's determined of like, yeah, someone can just spread super thin and try to capture them all, but then now you're exposing yourself, right? But it's all at the same time. So it's like small groups. They might just say like, hey, We can't take on Snuff, right? But we can take on Snuff on one moon.
Yep.
We can do this. Maybe on two.
Yeah, like there is definitely a lot of interesting options for CCP to at least make sure that there's a way to compete still. That it's not just like, all right, cool, we have this passive income and it's fairly secure. That's what I was thinking. Like, at least making it that whenever you go to collect whatever's been mined passively, there should still be at least some sort of vulnerability. Like you have to put it in your haulers. Your haulers could be fucking blown up.
Yeah, and there is new
Um,
haulers now too, right? So
yep. So there are ways like that that you could at least still prevent it from being just haha, control as many systems as you can and earn money. Um, because there should still be some level of effort behind it. You still need to collect what's being mined, and if you own like 500 systems, good luck collecting everything. That's going to become a logistical nightmare,
sounds like
which should also limit
some high
people
level
from like
PI.
owning everything.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. That's why I like just that idea that I just had, and I literally just thought of this, right? Because it's easy to just be in staging and cover everything. But then again, if it's all the same time anyway, then it makes it even easier, I guess. Right? They just bridge onto whatever is being attacked at that very given time, and instead of
yeah,
being spread out anyway.
it really depends on like how you do, because if you still have to collect everything, you're still gonna have like 20 different miners out in or like haulers out in specific places, and yeah, it depends on what CCP is going to do in how they make you collect your ores. Because if it's too much to fit in one hauler, just that or volume wise, then you're still gonna have like multiple trips, opportunities for ganking in between. That ore still needs to go somewhere. They're probably not gonna dump it in like 20 different NPC stations or something like that. So it's gonna be interesting. It depends on the details, but the one thing I am excited for is that just the faint hope of having systems have a set like this is how much money you can make from the system if you own it. At least gives groups an incentive to like, okay, I want to own those systems. I need to control them. I need to fight over them. Versus, yeah, right now with moon mining, Athenors, yeah, you, like as long as you have a couple, you're fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean I'm sure that's the idea that, smaller alliances can grab one or two, have some level of income and stuff, and they want to take them, right? So
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of space right now. Like, there's far reaches of Amar and Minmatar faction warfare space where there's almost desolated, where you could still make a lot of money if you have like all that passive income potential.
yeah.
And the same with Null. There's plenty of regions that are largely desolate because, yeah, there's not really any point
Yeah.
in the systems. But if you could suddenly take like 5 of those and put passive moon mining on them, that's pretty
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
for
NPC soft might, yeah, NPC null might see some more action that way too.
Yeah, for sure. Like just taking like a couple of systems and being able to put your passive income in there. You don't have to be like a tiny group risking like all of your Hulks or your Rorquals. But you can still make like passive income. And that's pretty big for alliances.
Yeah.
Especially the alliances that don't have a lot of money yet. They need a stable income flow to like start supporting SRP more often and be able to take fights more often.
Is there anything else that was in that stuff in a?
The potential of a PI rework is interesting because I tried it once. A buddy helped me with all of the setup and was like, "Here, this is where you go. This is how you do everything. Place these things down. Click this." And even
I
with
didn't
like
quite
a
read it as a PI rework. I gotta be
well, I mean,
honest.
there's new PI haulers in one of those structures, so
I
I'm
mean,
kind of
they didn't quite
assuming.
say PI. They did say, so they were
Yeah, but
talking
I mean, if
about new
you're talking
shit.
about like the skyhook and everything, that to me looks very much like HOD. This is a direct way for you to move all of your cargo and materials from planet surface to space. So for me,
Hmm.
that very directly translate. Yeah, this is how you do PI now.
I mean, I don't know.
But yeah, redoing that would be nice because even with like a detailed walkthrough of how to set it up, it was still just something like, Christ, I cannot be bothered doing this again.
I've never
It's
done
just too
PI.
much pain. Yeah,
On day
just
one, when it
don't,
was introduced to the game, that's when
don't.
I did
It's
PI for one
such an
day, and that was it.
even setting up a single tune and a single setup is just so much clicking. There's so many steps to go through to set everything up. It's it's a pain in the ass.
You know what? I'm super hyped for the iHub rework stuff. I don't know.
Mm.
I
There were
think they're
bits
just
of it that
setting it up for changes later on. But yeah, what?
there were bits in it that looked very interesting, especially if like being able to make systems more specific and like what ores and like what kind of rats and everything like that showed up. Yeah, Paradox just posted in chat. The pirate
actually,
orbital blockades and those things and the officer level enemies and being able to have just more ways to set up what kind of system you have is very cool.
I actually came prepared. I had the
Look at this
thingies
guy.
split up. So
Yeah, I mean, harness planetary power, like planetary industry, is one word away from that.
yeah, that's true. I
The
can only guess how it all works.
yeah, and harness resources from planets and moons. Like for me, that just reads as planetary industry.
I mean, yeah. That was everyone's first thought, right?
Mm.
But then if you go further, let's see, the second one that's the skyhook. So
Yeah,
technically you would think of is that a
yeah,
replacement of
direct
the
access to a planet's resources. I don't think they. Yeah, okay, they could have worded it a little bit more like directly, but not
Yeah.
much more.
I mean, it is a planetary interaction, right?
Yeah, and like skyhooks as a concept are always like, how do you get freight up to space without needing
Yeah.
rockets and stuff like that, which cost way more energy.
Yeah. And then number 3 was yeah, the automated harvesting. We talked about that.
Yeah.
It's the passive moon mining and stuff. Like, I think that's gonna be super impactful, probably. The soft, yeah, that was like that could be maybe not on day one, but I think what they're doing here is they set this up so they can do changes to this later on. Right?
Yeah, it's like more of like a central way to do like, all right, how am I configuring my system? What am I doing with my sovereignty? What bonuses are we getting? So being able to like customize your space. Yeah, okay, I'm not gonna do anything with it because I'm not sick, but still, like that's cool.
Yeah, it's
Just more.
It feels very much like they're reorganizing the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
To into something fresh, to then roll it out with a very, I would guess, with a very similar system as we have right now, and then they start making like bigger changes to it.
No.
Is my guess, at least. I don't know.
But a new framework at least in place would already be good, because if they have more ways to make you actually want to like customize and like set up your space in something that's valuable for your alliance is very important.
Yeah. And then I mean, the way I read it, like people keep asking about the Ansiblex stuff. I don't know if Ansiblexes are really on their radar, but they do need an iHub upgrade. So this might be very much part of it.
I hope so, because that's another topic that I could rave on for hours.
Yeah. People have heard my rant about it for like, if you want to do it, I'm not gonna say words. I don't want to influence you either.
I have enough frustration about projection to last me a lifetime. If you combine Ansiblexes, you combine Farah, you combine Zarzak, you combine certain wormholes and all that good stuff. Whoa, it is insane. That's one of the... I'll keep my rant short, but the main reason I dislike it is because it adds on to why owning a certain system doesn't have value. If you can project nearly everywhere easily, then why do you care about where specifically you live? Every space is basically just as good as the other. You don't really care about what's on your borders. You don't really care where exactly you are. As long as you have a couple of systems and you have Ansiblexes, you're fine.
And we saw that way more back in the day, that people have their stagings close-ish to
No,
low sec and high sec and stuff like this. So people like a Spectre fleet didn't need a filament or wormhole. You could
no.
reach these destinations, um, and
Yeah,
have
now
some
you
fun
just
there.
see like the silliest things, fleets from one corner of the universe showing up somewhere else like 5 minutes later.
Yeah,
And yeah, like okay, why do you care if you live in the ass end of nowhere in Nullsec if you can still reach the entire game in the next 10 minutes? So there's
yeah,
no like desire to like let's take this good central location with like a weak neighbor on the north that we don't really worry about. That puts us in a good space for content. No, kind of you can just stay where you are. You have content because everything is reachable. There used to be people like going on massive deployments just to live near content.
yeah,
When's the last time somebody's actually deployed just to have better neighbors?
yeah. No, yeah. I mean,
Like nobody does that anymore.
we deploy still
Yeah,
within it,
but like
but it's more of a
more like
like.
a focused target.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. It's a different style of deployment for sure.
Yeah, you used to like actually have people like say, "All right, cool, we're gonna move here for the next half year and just shoot these people for a while
Yeah,
and live close to this, so we can be close to the action." And nobody really cares about that anymore.
no, yeah.
And to move there, you used to have to kick the people who live there out, go take their stuff, and deploy there for a while. And now you just, yeah, we just sit in our home
And I always
system. And
thought it's more of a commitment too, because I think now you saw that very much in the B2 or B3 or whatever they call it at the end there, versus Fred kind of situation when Fred and Hordes kept pushing into their stuff and just anchoring citadels to get defensive timers.
no,
But then they didn't deploy deep into their space. They deployed
no,
home. You know, they
yep.
just
And it
they
just
just went
works
from
because you can just get everywhere.
yeah, and then you have no commitment. So there's no risk to it. So why wouldn't you do that, right?
Yeah,
Back
if
in
you
the
go
day, you would
back
have
to
to
some of like
deploy and
the
then be
if you
committed.
go back to some of like the big war stories from like way back in Eve, you used to actually have a problem where somebody had like half of their supercap fleet deployed to a specific region, and oh no, suddenly they got ambushed on the other side of Eve because they just couldn't project all the way back with their
Yeah,
forces anymore. And now, if a big supercat battle happens, yeah, okay, the enemy fleet might respond a little bit slowly, but
you can get there. Yeah,
no,
yeah. What?
the yeah, no, it's
What's
I like even if I'm not gonna do anything in nullsec, I just want more people to have reasons to fight over space because that gets everybody more active again.
yeah. And then number 5 was I had a new transport vessels. So I mean, they probably
Yeah,
look awesome as I can tell, but
yeah, it was
uh,
interesting because they did say that they had
missile
better
defense.
ways, yeah, ways to actually defend themselves. So
Yeah,
combat hauler fleets, if they become cheap enough, are gonna be
yeah.
quite entertaining.
Battle badges,
Yeah.
Tech 2 battle badges. That's what that is.
Hey, I mean, we use the
I mean,
Nereus in some of our anger game setups. Who knows? Maybe
yeah,
it just becomes like a better version.
I want to be honest. I don't know if I'm very convinced that like we needed this because I don't think these transport vessels, no matter what the missile shit is gonna be, they're never gonna be as good as a combat ship at the same
No,
moment. So you would still always bring these like try to avoid a fight with these. And usually, if you try to really avoid a fight in Eve, you can. Okay. So I don't think anyone in a serious way is gonna take these out to fight. It could be a meme fleet, of course, right? Like the Spectre
it's
fleet guys,
definitely
maybe,
more
but
meme fleet.
yeah,
I mean, if they get like proper missile defenses, yeah, okay, it's gonna be interesting. You might at least be able to like,
maybe it's auto
ah,
targeting or
shit, I
something.
fucked up my cloak micro warp drive, and now this frigate is tackling me. You can at least get away from it and stuff
Yeah,
like that. But
yeah,
like, we'll see. Could be interesting.
mm,
It's kind of a bummer because like, this was something I was talking to somebody else about as well. Is like, okay, we had the Lancers, but the realistic thing about Lancers right now is that nobody's using them except to just gank jump freighters.
yeah. I
There
think
hasn't
though,
been,
I think there hasn't been the right conflict for them either.
yeah, no,
Like
like
at the moment, there's no fights going on. I mean,
even for
we,
the
yeah.
people that have like a lot of money, they just use them because they're cool. Like I know people who use a Bane as a Hodred because it's actually like got
I
decent
mean,
application. You can do funny things with it, but like,
we saw it. So the conflict we have at the moment is like the catch curse area, right?
No.
Imperium versus Pappy, basically. You saw them use there, so in their own time zone, in their own space, or in I would say maybe in their control space at the time, they will field lancers to try and catch stuff. They've done it once or twice, but it's not like
Even in like the big capital battles or like big brawls, you don't ever see somebody trying to like, all right, let's jump in a lancer and try to lance all of these battleships so they don't take as much repairs.
yeah.
It has cool potential on paper, but yeah, the end
I
result is that like they're not really being used. And then you, sorry, I'm gonna go ahead and rant on this for a little bit because it's one of those things that I get bummed out about. They add 2 more ships, the Kisrael, cool ship, but like it mostly sees use for some like haha nano PvP, and that's it. And the Alligator, cool ship, but it's very expensive and mostly sees use as a Gila replacement for like ratting. I would love to just finally have like new actual combat ships that people use. Can we have that, please?
Yeah, that almost asks for a new ship type though, rather than a
Yeah,
ship, right?
or well, there's still like gaps in certain pirate lines that could be filled up as well, but like okay, we get industry ships again, but man, it's been such a long time since we saw new ships that like really made combat interesting or were like popular as
What
like a
was the last one
mainland
you
ship.
remember that really shook stuff
Um,
up a little bit?
I mean,
MJDs come to
class
mind.
yeah, class wise, it's command destroyers, obviously, because those are still like a huge impact on the game. They're absolutely amazing. But like specific ship wise, I would say the rebalance to navy battle cruisers and everything, cyclone fleets are insane.
Yeah,
Ferox
that's true.
navies are, they all have like kind of cool bonuses. Ferox navies, you could do like really crazy. You could do a triple XOASB on a battle cruiser,
Yeah,
which is
polarized, and
hilarious
it's
in
the tanks.
concept. Yeah, you can do fun stuff with that. They're very interesting, and they serve as a good like platform as well, just because they're still like good Feroxes.
Yeah,
Cyclone fleets are obviously amazing. Prophecy navies are amazing. They have great range, huge tank, and the Drake. No, not the Drake. Yeah, no. Which the Galente one? The Merm navy.
the
It's
web drone bonus.
it's cool. They try to do
Yeah,
something kooky with it. It still has some
I
potential.
I
It's
like
not
it.
great, but it's interesting. It's
It has
something
the
you could do, be
longest.
creative with.
It has the longest webs for that price tag. If you think
Yep,
about it.
it's you could do interesting ships or things with all 4 of these new ships. But with the Kisrael and the Gator, it's more just like, yeah, they kind of serve like a niche role. They can make PvE
Yeah.
better, and they can do some like cool nano PvP. But like, we are so overdue for like freshing up combat and seeing fleets of new ships. Not
Yeah.
just like, haha, I do my solo PvP in a Kisrael because it's a fun ship.
But I mean, it's fine too. You know, sometimes you get
I
a
mean, how long has it been since we really got like a cool new ship that you actually see in fleets, not just
I
like
mean, like you said, the
occasional
cycle
solo
fleet,
ships?
it hasn't been that long.
True, true. But that was a like not to be mean to CCP, but that is taking an existing ship, putting a little bit of a new spin and balance on it,
I mean,
and ta-da,
we
you're
know
done.
that's
Can we
exactly what
have
happened, right?
yeah, can we have something new? Like because there are plenty of concepts for like really cool ships. There's a lot of openings for Triglavian ships still. There's a lot of openings for Edencom ships. Um,
People
but
always talk about
yeah,
income logi. I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah. There's
Could be
very
interesting.
cool things that you could do with that. That probably are okay. I'm gonna be fair for CCP. Doing something like an Edencom Logi is probably like a logistical nightmare. But there are plenty of ideas on the table to just give us a new line of ships that can give us something new to do in fleet fights. But I do get the feeling when I look at Pythar right now, it's getting a little bit stale. And now you're telling me, yay, we get 4 new industrial ships. Not really what I was hoping for.
No, I mean, I like I said right at the start, I was like, I don't know if we needed this, but hey,
Yeah.
whatever.
Even if you take those 4 industry ships out and gave us like one new like cruiser or battle cruiser or something like that, or just filled out the pirate lines a little bit because there's still like pirate battle cruisers and stuff that you could
What
fill out.
about a frigate-sized monitor? I always
Would be
wonder.
interesting because like for FCing a lot of those like smaller fleets, there's a lot you can do with like, all right, well, you can do like a T3D that's quite tanky and
Yeah,
usually does
assault
the job.
rigs. Yeah, they
Um,
kind of do work, but like at the same time,
yeah, they're
to me it's
could be
weird.
cool.
To me, it's just weird that they say like, "Hey, we see the issue of FCs getting headshots all the time, and we decide to do something about it," which is already like you might actually be like totally legit opinion is to say like, why do we care? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
if you
you
only have
have
that one
essentially
guy,
added a ship
yeah,
to combat a actual combat tactic, and instead of
yeah,
adding a ship that has a in-game lore reason to exist, right? Because like the other ships in Eve exist for being the actual ships in Eve. The Monitor quite clearly, yeah, okay, you can give it some like lore spin in game, but everybody knows the Monitor only exists because of this like
yeah. And
player issue.
if I'm honest, like, dude, I got headshot so many times over the year, and I'm sure you did too. I'm not sure if a monitor in the first place, if that should have been done. But like it's here now, and I don't think it's a huge issue or anything. But what I then ask is, why do you go cruiser and above? Like,
Yeah.
why would you then say like, hey, we do think this is a problem. We want to fix this by introducing. But if you are destroyer or frigate sized, nah, dude, you
No.
don't get this. Like
There's
that
been
doesn't
many
make any
times where we
sense.
take an uphill fight against like
Yeah,
caracals or something with your
doesn't make
frigate
sense to
fleet,
me.
and it's just like, okay, well, my Hike just got headshot. Well,
Yeah,
this is awkward now.
yeah, I think that's
But
weird.
I can kind of understand it as well because like frigate and destroyer content doesn't tend to get to the size where it's really impactful.
I
So
mean, what do they like? They don't get to decide what's impactful and what's not. The players decide that stuff.
this is true.
And you can't tell me, like, when we rolled out Kikis in a hard way or the Stukas before that, that was impactful shit, right?
Hmm.
Like, we, like, really had an impact on the game, I think. And that was frigate destroyer sized. So,
This is true.
I mean,
Yeah, fair.
I just think it's kind of weird that they decided to just go with a cruiser, and then they went with the
It's
ship class of being a flag cruiser. Why would you do that as a ship class?
maybe I just have a sadistic like for getting my dual rep Hekates blown up as EFC. Because all of my frigate and destroyer fleets across Losec, if we're doing armor, I hunt from a Hekate with two or dual reps and double cat booster, which is very fun and can tank a lot of shit, but does also have like 5k hit points, so it can just sometimes get volleyed.
You can
Maybe I enjoy it too much.
And then McLovin says you can run a monitor with kickies, though, can't you? Like, sure, you can, but it's going to be worse. It's just going to be way
Yeah,
worse.
you're
You don't want
slowing
to.
your fleet down
Yeah,
massively.
yeah. If you get scrammed, what? Like the fleet that's usually doing 1,000 meters per second now does whatever the AB speed of a monitor is, like maybe 300, 400. Like
Yeah.
that's not what you're looking for. So yeah. With
With
snakes,
Snake.
sure, you could put snakes
Uh,
in, but
and like a
it's not gonna
turbo
do it.
abyssal AB, but
No.
yeah, no, it's still
What about
like not ideal.
MWD? What about MWD frig fleets and stuff like real fast? The Skybreakers are doing 4K per second. You're not gonna get that monitor to 4K per second. You just don't. And then I have to spend a 10 bill per ship with the pod and everything to get kind of close. I just think for a frigate fleet, it's just not reasonable. It's just not. I think.
No.
Yeah.
I think especially since they are or have been very clearly put in the role of you can't do anything useful from this ship, adding something like a frigate variant is not going to harm the game.
Yeah. Like.
If that FC was in a Harpy instead, for example, if that FC was still alive at the end on his own in a Harpy, that single Harpy is not making a difference either. So who cares if that single last ship remaining is now something tanky? If it's not making an impact on the game
Yeah.
and it's just
Yeah.
FCing, then yeah, it remains the same balance.
Yeah, I think they were very concerned even with the monitor about like people abusing its abilities, like the tankiness and stuff like this. You can see that with the cargo hold and all that stuff. Some annoying parts about it. Like if you've never had to do monitor stuff, but then you have the drones, you have the probes, but you have a probe bay because they were afraid if you have too much cargo,
The
people
issue
are
with
gonna.
frigate
Like,
if you turn it into, if it has fast enough a line to become insta warp, that becomes a problem. Because then suddenly, like,
yeah, I
people
mean,
moving
sure.
loot across Losec are suddenly in an unkillable frigate.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to. I mean, it's not unkillable. You don't have to make it much crazier than the monitor. You can just take the monitor, put the same everything, just give it a little bit more extra speed, cut the
No.
EHP maybe a little bit, but whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do understand, like, if it's insta warp, people can just use it to move a lot of things across
Yeah. No,
Losec,
you
even
shouldn't
like
do that.
single
Yeah.
failure. So it would have to at least have like no low slots, so you can't make the fit align faster, and make sure that with implants it's still
Monitor
like
doesn't have low slots
2.1
either.
second or something.
Monitor
You'd
doesn't
have
have
to,
lows. Does it?
yeah,
No.
you'd have to get creative with the stats though, just to make sure that you can't get it like insta warp with implants or something with nomads.
Yeah. I just
But
always thought it was weird. That's all.
no.
Um. Okay, we have one more thingy here. What was that? I had a skilled workforce thing. I think that's just another resource, by the way. That's what it sounds like to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I think like maybe like automating some of the industry or looks like that, but I'm curious what this is. I think also the clone thing is mostly just linking into Vanguard, so I'm not sure if this is like going to be a thing like actually affecting the game, or if this is more like flavor to the clone technology behind Vanguard and stuff like that.
Yeah. Vanguard is a good point too. Like you play Tarkov quite a bit, and people compare
Yep.
that quickly. Right, obviously, it's an extraction shooter. But I mean, the Vanguard team, they put out that they're reworking, like it's a different concept of a game. They just use the extraction shooter part for the alpha
It's
test, right?
yeah, I mean, I can understand if they're going to say that, but what they're showing right now isn't that. So that's the only frame of reference that we have.
True.
Right now, everything they've shown is just a very straightforward do some stuff in a mission and get out alive.
Yeah. Do you have a strong opinion?
I have a strong opinion. Why the hell, genuinely, why the hell are they testing it, quote unquote, testing it in its current state? Because I've gone back and forth with people over this, but what is there right now to test? Right now, there is a bare bones FPS with some very basic mechanics. You can do some like decent movement. There's an inventory and some like press buttons to turn inventory into other inventory. So there's like very basic crafting, very basic stuff. Surely you don't need testing to get those mechanics right. Like if you need to test that as a modern game studio and test to make sure that you can make like a single gun and crafting, then I have red flags of like, why do you need to test this? That's weird. These are very basic things. If you're trying to test how the game feels right now, then I also don't get it, because one of my best examples for this, there was a old World War II shooter that was just very straightforward, Americans versus Germans. They had a Tommy gun for the Americans and an MP40 for the Germans. The exact same stats on both weapons,
I know
but
that
the
story.
only difference is the sound. And everybody swore that the American Tommy gun was way better just because of a different sound. So that's the thing right now. You can test how the game feels right now, but the moment that you add a new gun, or you change movement and you add sliding, all of the feedback that you have for how the game feels right now is kind of out of the window. Because if you add a submachine gun right now that's very strong, maybe the assault rifle kind of feels kind of shitty right now. If you add a sniper rifle, or say if you add a grenade, somebody throws a grenade and the movement that feels fine before, oh, suddenly you realize you can't really walk fast enough to get out of a grenade's range in time, so the movement feels kind of slow. Like the moment you start adding more things,
Yeah.
all of your gameplay feel changes as well. So I don't understand what they actually think they're testing right now. And my theory right now is that this is one of those classic cases of different parts of the company moving at different speeds, where one part of the company is like, oh, hey, Vanguard, we should be like announcing that by now. And the Vanguard part of the company is like, we're kind of behind schedule and we don't have a lot to show off yet. That's
I
my thoughts at the moment.
I'm kind of on the same page. I didn't say anything about the testing part. Like, why do you want to test things? Like, yeah, you're right, probably. Yeah. What I always said was, if this is not like, why are you advertising it this much?
Yeah, like
That's what
this
is
this
weird to me.
doesn't
Like,
have it to
why is
make anybody excited.
yeah? I mean, any alpha test is advertisement too. They
Yeah.
have to realize that people will look at an alpha test not as like, oh yeah, I'm helping them to test things. Like, no, people
Mm.
are like, oh, I wonder what this game is about,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
if I would
People want
ever
to get
play it.
the early look.
Yeah,
And
and then a lot of people
one
will
of the
just say like,
things
no.
that's one of the things that's also very dangerous when you do something like this, there is a huge value behind your initial hype when you release something. So right now, if you go Vanguard is open, you can test it, and there's nothing there yet. Everybody's
Yeah,
first reaction is just like, "Oh, this kind of sucks. Okay, kind of boring. Yeah, okay, we can shoot things," and you get a bunch of
I
meh
agree.
reaction, and people lose interest. So they stop following it. They stop keeping track of it, and then when it comes out, you don't get as big of a reaction anymore. Whereas if your first test is like, "Oh, damn, this is actually kind of cool. There's quite a lot of things I can already do." People are interested. They actually follow the product as you go along, and you retain a lot more
Yeah,
hype for the actual release.
I think it made sense for them to do a alpha test kind of thing at that point when they did it,
Mm.
because there was always that speculation about, oh, CCP is making a shooter but they're going to cancel it, whatnot, because they didn't have
Yeah.
the best track record there. So it made sense in my eyes anyway to say like, hey guys, we're making a shooter, and here it is happening, here's proof. Basically, that's how I saw it, right? So they do the
I
first alpha
just
test, and I was like, oh yeah, they want to show people like, hey, we're actually doing this, and we are working on the asset. We're building the game
mm,
right now. We have the basic shooter, and let's see how it feels. And then they can go out and say like, okay, you played this, we built this for this test. We will go in the MMO direction, and there's going to be radio silence till we feel like the product is ready. Like, that's what like
yeah.
I thought they would do, right? But like they keep
I
pushing the Vanguard thing.
especially since they just kind of the initial hype kind of flew out the window the moment the first test happened. Everybody was like, "Okay, well, what's here to do right now? I can just kind of walk around and shoot a gun. There's not much to it." So when the updates after that are also like, we added keybinds, or okay, we're now doing like another test, but nothing has really changed. There's just some backend changes. You're losing even more hype. Like, there's even more people that are just like, oh, there's an update on Vanguard. Oh, there's still nothing to do? It's like, I think their approach right now is really damaging, because there's almost nobody I know is taking this seriously as like, oh, look how interesting this could be in the future. Everybody's reactions that I've talked to right now are just like, everything so far is meh. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're
I
kind of
don't
on the
think
same
it's
page here.
I don't think it's a very good way to retain interest,
No, yeah, I think
essentially.
so. But I do believe that if they have a good concept, I don't know the concept obviously, but like I think it has potential, and I think it's
Oh
the
yeah, yeah, for sure.
and I
Don't get
think
me wrong.
making
Like
a shooter in general is a cool idea.
that's like not
Yeah,
even the issue. What's there? It looks pretty good, and with enough like balancing for like how it looks and how it feels to play, yeah, you could have something really interesting there. But that doesn't matter if nobody believes in it anymore.
yeah,
That's why I think it's a bit of a shame. Because, like, don't get me wrong, it looks good if they do better audio and stuff like that, and because audio is a huge part of like how it feels to play, it could feel really good to play to. But if everybody's excitement is already out of the window, then yeah, uh, I see financial problems for the game in its future.
yeah.
That's my concern.
Yep. What would you like to see them do with it? Like,
Ooh, that's a good question. I haven't really thought about that because, yeah, I've played games like Tarkov, and especially in Eve's universe, there's a lot of cool things you could do with that sort of like attitude of like shooter where you're trying like the whole concept of being a clone trying to get in and out fits with the story, fits with the world, is a very cool concept. You could do a lot of cool stuff with that, and especially if you can use it in any sort of way to affect what you're doing in Eve. That's really cool. You have so much opportunity there to do something that's actually kind of awesome. My main hope is that they just make sure that they don't focus too much on like, haha, you could affect warfare or faction warfare with it, because there's a lot of people that aren't going to care about that part. There's a lot of people that just want to have a good FPS game if they keep interested, and if their FPS game has benefits in what they're doing in Eve. But if the FPS game itself isn't like a great focus, it very quickly falls off. Then it's just not worth the benefit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like the MMO route they seem to be interested in. I haven't seen any, like, they haven't talked about the details of what exactly that means in their mind. But yeah, I think, I mean, I haven't given up on it.
Oh, they have the potential. I kind of hope that they also do something the other way around again, where you can affect the game from Eve, because I still remember when I was brand new to Eve, helping my buddy with call downs of artillery by bringing my courser to faction warfare. That was super cool. And if we can do that on a game that's on PC again instead of on PlayStation only.
Unbelievable how many people say that, right? I think Dust 514. I mean, we all know the PlayStation issue, right?
Mm-hmm. But damn, it was cool.
I think a lot of people forget that actually that was a unique concept, and I think that's what you need. If you compete with other shooters, you need something unique about your shooter. You can't swing in right now and compete with Tarkov as an extraction shooter. You're gonna have a bad time, dude.
I mean, if you've been following Tarkov recently, it's kind of shooting itself in the foot. So
I've seen that actually. Tarkov has like drama because they brought out a $200 DLC. That's insane.
$250, mind you.
Imagine CCP did that. Oh my god. Imagine they bring out Vanguard and then like a year later they say like, hey, so now you get that extra mission you can do, but where's your money, dude? Where's the $250? People would go nuts. It was even
funnier because like their developer Nikita, the head guy from BSG, has been responding, and he's only making it worse. Yeah. He was saying that like
I've seen some.
Like it was really bad because like one of the main things was also saying like, oh, it's time for the real believers to put money into the game. I'm like, I bought the EOD version.
The real believers.
And you're going to say, oh, I'm not the real believer? I bought that game like 6 years ago. $150 or something. And you're going to say, I'm not the real believer? You fuck off. What the fuck?
Yeah. Right? I've seen it. Like, I think devs, they're not like, so the players aren't always right. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not always right. On Reddit
players
or wherever.
Sometimes very stupid.
They're very dumb sometimes, right? And I think over time, some devs tend to just disregard every player's opinion because they've seen some really dumb shit, right?
Did you see the?
They just become so arrogant. I'm just saying they become so arrogant and like full of themselves. They don't even wanna entertain the idea that they could be wrong. Like they can't even see that, right?
If you saw during the like right after the release of Helldivers as well, there was a couple of developers on their Discord when people were complaining about some of the game balance issues that were very clear, like a lot of weapons just not working against heavy armor, so everybody had to use the railgun, for example. Some of the developers on their Discord were also being like really arrogant and just basically saying, well, just get good, use the railgun and stuff like that. Until the CEO stepped in and said like, nah, sorry, these developers are out of line. We're gonna teach them to like handle this better. And then suddenly, like the like player and company relationship got a lot better. And this is kind of the same thing the other way around. The CEO is just being the idiot, and there's nobody there to tell him to stop.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? What if you're the dev? You're dev on Tarkov, and then your boss says the dumbest stuff. Do you now go hard and tell him like, dude,
I would not be happy because that's my job on the line if this guy like keeps pissing off the community, right?
It might not only be your job, but also like let's assume your job isn't even on the line. Let's just assume you just want the best for the game.
Oh yeah.
Do you achieve what you want by being direct, or do you go in soft and kind of try to steer me? Like, I
It's
don't know.
difficult
I don't have
because
the answer.
it's also just like the motivation. If you're working on something as specific as like a product, like a game, a lot of how you feel about your job is going to do with like how are people reacting to you? How are people responding? I bet right now the Helldivers developers are having a great time because everybody's super positive and all of the ways they're releasing updates, people are super interested in how they're doing the updates. I would be ecstatic to work on that. That's super cool. My product is actually keeping people like super interested even on like updates.
I do have to say though, looking at that, looking at other like negative events in the gaming scene and stuff, I think a lot of times players also love that the tribalism. So
Oh,
if
for sure.
people wanna love shit, they wanna love that stuff, and
Yeah.
then you have so much more wiggle room. If they wanna hate your product, whatever for whatever reason, they will, right? You can
No.
like I think to a
There's very
degree
little
it's
you
out of
can
their
do to
hands
turn
too.
it around.
Yeah. Once that
But
shit's on fire, it's on fire. Like what? It's very hard to come back from that. I feel like
luckily, CCP has mostly learned from the monocles
they
issue
had a lot
from
of they
back.
had a lot of time to learn too, right?
It's difficult though. It's difficult because like CCP's right now as well is in has gotten so big. There's a lot of developers and people working at CCP that I am willing to wager. I obviously can't say this for a fact, but I'm willing to wager. There's quite a few people working at CCP nowadays that don't really care about Eve or aren't really invested in it. Maybe don't play it either. And you do see that in some of like the updates and the way that the company is responding to people, and it's
Yeah.
it's difficult when it because like yeah, of course CCP wants to grow bigger. Can't blame them for it. That's pretty logical. Everybody wants to keep doing that, but I that's why I think like Helldivers is doing so well right now is because they're still pretty small and pretty much everybody involved um has a bit more of like a direct link to
Yeah,
what they're
it's a way different game too. Like also when we're talking about Eve, for example, right? If Hilmar says he plays Eve, does he actually play Eve? Are we kidding ourselves? Is he gonna tell the Thorax stories for the fucking 100th time? I don't like
Yep.
I don't
I
hate the
don't
guy.
think he's
I really don't
secretly
want to be
like an
too
Alliance
yeah,
FC.
yeah. I don't want to be harsh. Like, I don't expect him. Like he's not coming out and saying like, oh, he's a super active Eve player. But what I'm trying to say is there is like for everyone there's a different line where you would say he's playing Eve, for
Yeah.
me, for example, to experience Eve you would have to have like if you want to have a full like understanding you have to have a deeper nullsec alliance experience. You just have
Yeah.
to. It's such a core part of the game. If you've never been deep into nullsec warfare you haven't really experienced Eve, in my opinion, right? And
Yep.
of course it's not all of it. Like you should also check out like how do you come up, how do you build an alliance, this stuff. If you want a holistic experience, if you want like super knowledgeable guy, and then not everyone is going to have that at CCP, of course. Like
No.
nobody asks for that, right? I just think that experience needs to be in the room though, right? Someone there has to be in the room, and I think they have done a good job hiring the right people lately, right? If you
It
look
is
at it,
difficult though. It is very difficult because if you
it
look
is
at
of
just
course.
like if you compare it to, for example, Helldiver, it doesn't take a lot to like know how Helldiver feels and how
Yeah.
the people are going to feel
Yeah.
playing the game. You only need to play a couple of matches to be like, yeah, okay, we need to do something about the balancing of these weapons because they just kind of like feel shit and like keep shooting stuff with it, nothing's dying.
It's a very simple
That's
game compared to
direct.
Eve, right?
Try to do that in Eve. You need to play it for months to understand
Months.
certain like
Dude,
constructions.
some things you learn after years. And even then, like you
Oh,
never stop
speaking of,
learning
you want to
anyway.
know my most embarrassing one? I've been playing 12 years. Only last week did I realize that T1 armor or T1 hulls have slightly different armor resist profiles. I only learned this like last week. I just never noticed it for
I
12 fucking
honestly,
years.
honestly, I'm a theory crafter too, and I'm just like, wait, what? All tier one holds, isn't it zero? 0, 10, 20,
Oh, you
50,
haven't noticed this,
whatever it
Ivor?
is.
Oh,
I've
I'm
never
opening
paid
up
attention.
FIFA right now.
I thought T1 resits are always the same.
I thought so as well. Here, let me grab it. I'm gonna teach you the same thing I learned last year or last week, despite doing the shit for God knows how long. Here, let's see. An apocalypse. Let's grab it. Let's grab it. Has a base resist of 50, 35, 25, 20. But if you grab a Raven, let's see. It has a base resist of 50, 45, 25, 10 in armor.
In armor?
In armor. I never knew this until a week ago.
I didn't either.
Like one of those things that, like, oh Christ, how? 12 years, thousands of fits I've made. The amount of times I look at PIFA and EFT and everything over the years, and you just like still you miss certain things like that.
Yeah.
But that's also part of the fun.
And,
you can keep learning.
Yeah, and we wouldn't expect that from a CCP dev. Like, not everyone who works at CCP needs to know these like things.
But it's difficult though, because if you imagine like how many balancing things and discussions you have right now, if you don't even know like tiny resist differences. Yeah, maybe those tiny resist differences are now like why certain battleships are just a lot better, even though the stats are fairly similar. Like,
yeah, I mean,
there's so much detail.
Yeah, but that's why I'm saying they did a fantastic job lately hiring the right guys to have that deeper EVE experience in the room, right?
Yeah, especially for tournaments, it was also very necessary because like it's always been just a bare bones thing with like very
big reason
support.
why tournaments came back in the first place. AT was not happening anymore. People forget, right?
Yeah, I remember that year of, hey, EVE isn't even doing tournaments anymore. I almost considered quitting at the time because I was like, damn, EVE is really dropping the ball on supporting the things that I like.
Yeah, I think a lot of people thought at the time, like, okay, that might be the beginning of the end then, right?
No, that was like that year when there was no Alliance tournament, I considered quitting. I genuinely thought like, okay, I'm losing even more of the things that I enjoy in the game.
Yeah.
But luckily it came back and I got to place top 6. Oh man, that was fun.
Well. Philip, yeah, he is in Big App, aka Deepwater Hooligans.
Yes.
You only joined
a low.
Yeah,
I joined a little while ago after wonderful Hidden Leaf Village Turbo Assassin Squad Esports dropped out and slightly died.
Yeah, let's not talk about
the bad pirates. No, the good pirates, obviously. That's how that works, right?
Yeah, only friendly pirates over there.
No, Jutsu was incredibly fun while it lasted, but while it lasted.
But yeah, I mean, we're at 2 hours. Usually I do an hour or an hour and a half.
Christ. Holy shit,
time goes quick. Sign, though. That was a good sign. But I would say maybe we cut it
sure.
at this point. Do you have anything that you feel like we didn't touch on that you want to?
Let me check my notes as well.
And in case you don't, I would say thanks for coming on. Thanks for coming for doing this. I hope you keep flying Skybreakers.
I will have to see. They are difficult.
They are fucking difficult.
They are very difficult ships.
The range limits them quite a bit too. But I'll keep doing them.
It's one of those things that has potential and is fun to do. We still have a lot of them left over in Jita because they're that expensive.
No.
But just the ability to like disconnect a fleet member by shooting at them is quite entertaining to me in general. So who knows? Maybe we cook up something funny with it. But no, like most of the things we had noted, we've talked about. So
nice. Alrighty.
Likewise, thanks a lot for having me. It was very fun.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't mind rambling on about the things I like and dislike about EVE. That's very easy.
Those are the best podcasts where I don't have to, look up stuff and try to keep the ball going. Like, easy one. Very enjoyable. Cool. So yeah, I hope
thanks
you guys
for having me and.
I hope you guys on stream enjoyed this one too. I will be on. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be on tomorrow, but I will be on either tomorrow or Tuesday next. And I'll see you guys there. All right. Bye bye.